As the final buzzer sounded on the Pistons' 2023 season, two die-hard fans, Mickey and Harry, each passed out and witnessed a vision. They were visited by Detroit's very own mascot, Hooper, the stallion ablaze, who told them the only way the Pistons would ever win a championship again was if these two men started a podcast. To be clear, they said, do we really have to do this? I mean, aren't there enough Pistons podcasts already? It seems like this might be overkill. But Hooper dunked on them, right in their face, and said, your team needs you. He presented them with a prophecy. Now it is their duty to help Detroit rise again and become champions. The Order of the Blazing Horse. Welcome back to another brand spanking new episode of The Order of the Blazing Horse, the only Detroit Pistons podcast based on a mystical prophecy. I am one of those prophets touched by a horse in a very appropriate, consensual, ethereal, vision way. Harry Morrow's out here in Ypsilanti, joined as always by my co-host on the West Coast.
I'm Mickey Jacobs. Harry, my juice levels are higher than normal. We got a very special guest. Tell me all about him.
If you're an NBA fan, which of course you are, you're watching our podcast, you're listening to it, and we talk NBA. If you are a fan of NBA.com, and if you follow the power rankings, you might know this senior writer for NBA.com. You might also know him from his pick a basketball run that he's going off to later this evening. We'll find out how that's going. But we are honored to be joined by a pretty damn good writer especially for like the power ranking stuff. If you're going over all that, John Schuhmann. John, thank you for joining the show.
My pleasure, guys.
So John, you are the power rankings, money, power, respect rankings for not the locks, but for NBA.com. How long have you been doing that for? And we'll get into that after that.
So I've been writing for NBA.com for 20 years. This is season 21 for me. Started in 2005. I think I've been doing the power rankings for 18 or 19 of those years. I'm not sure exactly. I forget what year it started, which is crazy to me. That seems like a lot. Like, I think I've been doing the power rankings. There's probably some players in the NBA who were born after I started doing NBA power rankings.
Yeah, Ron Holland is about as old as your power rankings, it sounds like. not far off from that. I wanted to ask, when you first started doing the power rankings, were you prepared for all the fan base pushback and backlash and vitriol that was going to come your way, especially in the age of social media? Or did you start early enough before that where it was just part of the job going into it all?
It was pre-social media, but I remember like my first year writing for NBA.com, even before doing the power rankings, actually did our like rookie rankings. I remember the first couple of years, and we used to get a lot of email. And like half of it was from the Philippines. And I remember like, wait a minute, like the people in the Philippines like NBA, and like I was quickly like really learned my lesson on that. But yeah, I remember getting a lot of backlash. There was a lot of Toronto fans who didn't like that I had Brandon Roy ranked over Andrea Bargnani back in the day in the rookie rankings. But yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory. I don't worry about it too much. The great thing is with power rankings in the NBA and doing it every week is if that you get them wrong this week, you always get to try again 7 days later. So I don't worry about like the backlash about where teams are ranked. One, because of that, and then two, because that's not my real focus when I'm writing them. I'll let you guys in a little secret. The actual order that the teams are in is like less than 1% of the work I do. 99% of the work is what's written about the teams. Because I've tried to, give you some information that you're not going to get anywhere else. And then at the very sort of, I finish writing about the teams, and then at some point early on Monday morning, I put them in some kind of order. Now, I do the best I can, and there is some sort of logic to it. But like I said, it's not the focus. And so therefore, it makes it easier for me to just ignore any kind of vitriol that's coming my way.
Yeah, speaking of vitriol, like, I mean, what's so cool about your reporting too is the transparency and the breakdown. So, like, how do you, rationalize to bitter Pistons fans, ourselves among them, like, we've got the second best record in the league. Why are we where we are? And I know, as you said, the actual list is just 1% of what you do, but just in terms of fielding that vitriol, how do you respond?
I guess right now at this point, I mean they have a good record against good teams. So it's always like, what's your record? Um, what's your point differential? And I think that's maybe where they come up a little bit short in regards to like the three best, like the Thunder, the Rockets, the Nuggets, those teams. It's
Lakers,
recent.
really.
It's recency. Like, what have you done in the last few weeks? It's quality wins, which, like I said, they
Yeah.
have. In fact, they have a win over the Rockets, although it was early in the season.
Yeah.
Real quick on that Rockets win, one thing that I think is like crazy about that is I believe Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren were both out of that game early, and Paul Reed played like the final, I don't know, quarter of that game, and the Pistons were still able to pull it off, which is an impressive Piston feat for early in the season for the Rockets home opener.
Paul Reed's probably the best third string center in the league.
Yeah, I think a lot in the Pistons sphere. That's a big topic of discussion. Is just like, because are we
Paul
have
Reed playing more? Like, yeah, like because when he plays, they play well.
Good problem to have.
Yeah.
It's like, but yeah, our two starting and bench bigs do very different things, but they're both foul prone and like sometimes there's injury trouble. So it's really nice to have P. Reed, B-ball Paul waiting in the wings.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry to interrupt on that. It's just like a thing I wanted to say that I haven't brought up on a podcast since that game, but I keep thinking it's like pretty interesting about it for the Pistons big man rotation.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look like recently, like their win over the Bucks, they're in their most recent game, I think was like their first double-digit win in like 8 or 9 games, something like that. So, I mean, they beat the Hawks by 1 in a game where the Hawks had played double OT the night before, if I remember correctly.
And the Pistons were up by like 20 plus in that game on top of it.
Yeah. So it's not like they've been totally dominant of late, and but like I still have them up high, and I think also it is, it's the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference is another thing. And in regard to point differential, as I said, I mean, it's the Thunder, the Rockets, and the Nuggets are just head and shoulders above everybody else. And so I guess, that's it. Like, I mean, there's still opportunities for them to be like 2 or 3 in the power rankings for sure. I know they've got like a game at Boston early next week. That's a chance to sort of redeem a loss they had recently. So like if they win that, and with how well Boston has been playing, that's a huge, sort of feather in their cap. So I think it's going to be a matter of, quality wins, like what happens when they face like Denver, Houston, Oklahoma City, again, like how do they handle those types of games? That's what can really sort of vault a team. Is like, people ask me like, are the Thunder going to be like number 1 from start to finish in the season? And it's like, yeah, probably. But if like Denver goes on a run where they win like 10 of 11, and that includes a win over the Thunder, well, then maybe that's that's the chance. Those two teams don't play each other till February, by the way.
It's going to be a lot of great late matchups, I think, because even like with like Detroit, as you're alluding to, it's not like there are a ton of big games. Even in the near future. Yeah, they have Boston on Monday, and then they have Los Angeles to close out the 2025 year, and the Lakers and the Clippers, but the Lakers the one that matter, I think, at this point. And that, as far as like just ranking these teams in general, this isn't like a Pistons specific question. And Doc Hammertime from our chat also, you wanted to know this, but is there like a special tiebreaker or metric in your head when they are teams that are so close, or do you have like intangibles that you like to give a little nod to on the extra side for these teams?
That's a good question. I definitely look at point different. Like head to head is definitely going to be a tiebreaker if there's a recent head to head game within the last couple of weeks, right? Like if two teams are in the general area and one of them beat the other one within the last couple of weeks, that's for sure going to be give them the edge. Point differential, I think, matters. Vibes, yeah, maybe there's some sort of thing that's in my head and just like how I'm feeling about a team. I mean, I can't say that it's totally objective, and how I'm feeling about a team on a given Sunday is gonna make a difference, I guess. And sometimes you're feeling good about a team based on what they're doing. Sometimes losses you can throw away, like, because it was second game of a back-to-back and they were missing, player X and player Y, and that wasn't a long-term absence, right? Like Giannis being out for multiple weeks is going to hurt the Bucks, but if he missed one game, right, and they lost to a good team in that one game, that wouldn't hurt them necessarily in the power ranking. So it's stuff like that.
Okay. I wanted to bring up a couple of the stats that you shared on Blue Sky today. If you're not following John, it's it's on the screen. It's at John Schuhmann at bsky.social. And you should follow. It's a great follow because he gives stats like this. The first one that you released earlier today was about how there are 17 teams that are currently above 500 right now, and where teams stand in that whole regard. You said the Thunder have played like the fewest games against good team. The Magic have played the most against good teams. Pistons have played actually the second fewest. I think it's 11, second fewest among those teams, but they have the second most wins against teams with winning records at 8. So they're 8-3. Pretty good like win percentage. I think the Thunder probably has the best win percentage because it's probably 100 or 1,000 or whatever. I think they only lost to Portland. So it's like out of control. But like from that statistic, what did you find interesting league wide? What was like your biggest observation league wide in that regard?
It's a good question. I find the ones that have the sort of the biggest discrepancy. So like Memphis is that team. Like I think they're undefeated against the teams below 500. And they have one win against the teams above. They're like basically the best of the bad teams. But they've been pretty good of late. A lot of that is the presence of Zach Edey, who's now hurt. So like I just find them an interesting team. Like they're not as bad as you think. They sort of take care of business. That's a good thing. Cleveland is interesting in that like they were pretty good against good teams last year, and then that's really who they struggled against this year. They've taken care of business for the most part against teams below 500. I think their only losses to Portland, who's sort of one of the better, below 500 teams. So I think that'll be something for them. Just looking forward, like, can they get some quality wins? I think it is the look for them. And obviously their injuries have hurt, but they're just still not the same team that they were last year. I guess that's it. And I think that the fact that Detroit has been so good in games against good teams is obviously a feather in their cap and something worth noting and sort of keeping an eye on, especially as they play some other good teams going forward.
And that like kind of leads into like the second stat. This one you shared like a little bit later. This is about the highest individual player point differential for like when they're on the floor, and that goes with the aforementioned Zach Edey, who you brought up, who has been not just a huge person but a huge player. Like, what a transition from college dominance to kind of an unexpected pro career for, I think, well, as far as like scouts went, as far as the fan base went, maybe he's a little too slow or something, but the dude's balling out. There's no doubt about it. The kid can play. But number 2 on that list, Detroit's own Jalen Duren. And I was wondering, you watch all the games, you take notes on all the games for as much as you can. Do you feel that potentially Detroit's paint dominance and focus inside, we talked about their front court earlier, potentially having the best third center, and then having Beef Stew, who JB Bickerstaff calls the best defensive center, and Jalen Duren, who's playing at an all-star level with this high stat that we just talked about with on and off performance. Do you think that maybe that is a reason for Detroit's kind of success against these big teams, because they're doing something that a lot of other teams aren't doing, which is not like stretching the perimeter or looking to get their shot, but it's to bring the noise inside and kind of dominate from there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, the most important shots on the floor are still layups and dunks, right? And And then, obviously free throws are huge too. So if you can defend without fouling, that's important.
Well,
what if you can't?
So yeah, still the most important shots are layups and dunks, and the possession game is still important. So if you're not a great shooting team, you can overcome that by being a great rebounding team and forcing a lot of turnovers or taking care of the ball. And so, yeah, I think there's other teams that are like that. Like Orlando is similar. That's just sort of a team that's very, is its strength is inside, in the inside. The Lakers are kind of like that, where their strength is inside and actually obviously getting to the line a lot. So yeah, I think there's, if you just look at the last X amount of NBA championships, all those teams have won in very different ways. Like the Thunder were a lot different than the Celtics, who are a lot different than the Nuggets, who are a lot different than going back Warriors, right? And they all won in different ways. Like there's, in the words of former Pistons coach Dwayne Casey, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. He used to say, I remember. And there are multiple ways to win in the NBA, both offensively and defensively. How do you win possessions on offense? How do you win possessions on defense? There's a lot of different ways to do it. And, being dominant inside and on the glass is certainly one of the many ways.
In terms of the Pistons, that's been their bread and butter. And like you mentioned, disruption, trying to get as many possessions as possible, forcing turnovers. They've also started turning the ball over quite a bit more recently. Do you think this paint dominance, heavy defense sort of bread and butter is sustainable? Or do you think that the outside shooting and the free throw shooting is going to have to improve if they want to rise the rankings?
Well, I mean, yeah, you have to have some certain level of shooting to be the best, a title contender, or just, for the Pistons, say, to win, multiple playoff series. Just the way they were last year, they almost won a playoff series. They basically shot themselves in the foot, I think, a little with too many turnovers and too many fouls. So yeah, I think there's a ceiling for where they are, maybe, perhaps. But I think, it's not like they can't be a better shooting team than they are right now, just given their personnel. I think there's room for improvement with the guys that are on the roster right now, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the roster as far as bad shooting seasons from deep, Cade is having a pretty bad from deep shooting season. Tobias, it's fine, I guess. Ron Holland, we're expecting him to be a little bit better. And Jaden Ivey, we're just getting him back to seeing how that's starting to go. So there is, there's hope for it. There's not much hope for Asar Thompson in that regard, or Jalen Duren, at least this season, right, in that regard. Although, who knows with him? He's showing growth as far as his shot going outside. But I think when we first reached out to you on Blue Sky, it was specifically about their 3-point shooting and about a comment that you made about when Detroit gets fully healthy. You said that Duncan Robinson should remain in the starting lineup when that happened. And that was before Jaden Ivey had any chance of coming back that soon or anything like that. I think I even responded back I don't know, his defense is pretty weak, and Jaden's will step up in that degree. Maybe he'll come in and do it. Are you still feeling some kind of way about that now?
I mean, it's mostly a theoretical, theory. It's obviously we'll see how it works out in practice, but in theory, yeah, I think he complements the rest of that starting lineup the best. And it's not necessarily because he shoots. He's a great shooter. He's also a great movement shooter. Jaden Ivey was a good shooter, 3-point shooter last year, but I don't think he can shoot. I mean, you guys can tell me, but I don't think he can shoot on the move like Duncan Robinson can. I was thinking, was there a game? Was it the Atlanta game last week where he had 2 big threes down the stretch? I feel like one of them at least was on the move and was holy cow, that was a tough, catch and shoot, relocation type 3. And I just feel like that movement and the combination of the movement and the shooting complements Cade. It complements obviously Thompson and Duren, because they don't shoot.
Mm.
And Tobias Harris is going to be sitting in the corner. I mean, he's fantastic on right corner threes, or has been in past years. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, I think there's just a little bit of that dynamic. I think I was looking at the starting lineup. It's plus 8.1 per 100 possessions right now. That's better than the Pistons numbers overall, although it's only like 11th of 21 lineups that have played 100 minutes. And the numbers for that lineup are sort of better defensively than offensively. We'll see how that, how real that is. It's still a fairly small sample size. But like the defense has held up basically with Duncan Robinson on the floor with those other starters. Ivey's he's played 8 games and has yet to play 20 minutes, I think, at all. So obviously they're slow playing his return, but it doesn't mean you can't like experiment, like, oh, let's play like the last 3 minutes of the first half with Ivey instead of Robinson in that lineup and see what we do. Like, I think that would maybe be what I might do. I mean, JB Bickerstaff knows better than me, but that's a possibility, right? Like, just to see, all right, let's see what the Ivey lineup looks like, or let's see what it looks like. I mean, I guess they had Dennis Jenkins in Robinson's place for a couple of games, right?
Didn't go so great.
Yeah,
no shade to Dennis.
we're Dennis fans.
Yeah, he definitely seems more like a sort of shot in the arm off the bench type player than a guy that's going to fit in that lineup. But yeah, I guess I assume that the two options are Robinson or Ivey that you're thinking of, and I don't know, give Ivey a few minutes, like I said, at the end of the half or something like that to see how that works.
One thing, because one of the major plans for this whole season for this team was development. They're like, we're not going to get anybody big in the offseason. That's why they got Duncan. That's why they got Karras, and they pretty much ended there. And they're like, we're going to see how Ron does. We're going to see how Sar does. We're going to see what Duren does. We're going to see what Ivey does. We're going to see what Stu does. We're going to see what, like, most of their team, young developing guys, and they almost all, I mean, with the exception of Ivey, he's just coming out now, but they all showed some growth. Like, Asar's ball handling has shown serious growth. Duren's everything has shown like insane growth. Stu is a 3-point shooter, like even finishing inside is way better. Ron Holland stealing like crazy. The defense is awesome. With Ivey, the focus on his development was, and I think the plan was, we kind of want to have 2 guards who are both ball handlers who can both score in Cade and Ivey. We'll have Ivey run the second unit and see how it goes. However, historically for Ivey, he's been kind of turnover prone as a ball handler. It hasn't seemed to be his biggest skill set. And when you're saying like maybe you can play some starting or some rotations where Ivey's in the Duncan spot in that starter role, I'd almost love to see Ivey do what Duncan does, which is be the 3-point scoring threat, not the ball handler. Let Asar take that secondary ball handler the role off of his hands and just let him go to work scoring and shooting that ball. Because one thing that showed since he's come back is that 3-point shot still looks really nice. I mean, he's not shooting like a crazy percent, but even the ones that like don't count because it's like after the whistle, the shot still looks good. What for this team, not just with Ivey, but with all the young guys coming into this year, what has been the biggest surprise for you as far as the development has gone?
I mean, I think it's Duren. Although I think I remember I covered all of that series with the Knicks last year.
Lucky
and
you.
I remember like taking notes when he had like a short roll and then a nice kick to the corner, like identified made great reads out of the short roll. So like seeing him do that this year isn't like a huge surprise. I guess it's more the short roll and then see the guy in front of me and be like, all right, I can put a dribble down, spin move, and finish. I think it's more, or like the fake handoff and just attack my guy, like him just being a little bit more aggressive offensively and not just sort of throwing the ball up towards the basket if there's somebody in front of him, but playing with a little bit of touch and a little bit of, I don't know how you say it, like just a little bit of skill around the basket. That's, I think, been the thing I've enjoyed most when I've watched the Pistons, for sure.
The face-up stuff has been surprising for like just him deciding like you can't guard me. And I think the games where he's less aggressive are the ones where we really struggle. So it's definitely been a fun progression, and it's like I think we're all just sort of hoping that he can be and like look as Ivey comes back or as the personnel changes, things might change. But I think if Duren can remain a 20 and 10 guy, like the Pistons have like a big a way higher ceiling.
For sure. Yeah, and you're right. Like even like like he'll catch at the elbow like in a horn set or something like that, and then just like face up and go to work, almost like he's I don't know who like Siakam. Like Siakam does that for the Pacers, right? Like they're a movement team, but then every once in a while they'll just sort of throw him the ball at the elbow and say, "Hey, you go isolate." And if the Pistons can do that with Duren, like 2, 3, 4 times a game, like that's a nice little piece to have for sure.
You heard it here first. A Siakam to Duren comparison.
Aggregate it.
It's going on the socials without a doubt. Dante Massey, 600 in the chat, says you want guys like Ivey and Sasser to do the thing they're best at, score. Cade and Dennis are allowed to do that, but it's going to be next to impossible for Sasser to get minutes. And I think that's kind of fair. Do you have any thoughts on the Marcus Sasser situation? Because just the rotation in general, because when Ivey came back healthy, right now they're almost fully healthy. It sounds like Bobby Clinton's out, and Isaac Jones is out, but Isaac Jones is like, no shade to him. He's played maybe 2 minutes on this team so far. So I don't know what they have in him at all. He seems like a fine player, and people in Sacramento seem to like him a fair share. Which is probably why he's not in Sacramento anymore, because they like getting good players, the guys they like. But like, how have you had any feelings about this big rotation, or about should teams be doing this big rotation for not just like playoff depth, but for like player health concerns in the age of injury? Or is it more important to get the guys who need to get run?
It's a good question. The Warriors have basically been doing this thing for the last couple of years too, where they basically play some 11 or 12 guys some nights, and it's one, they have 11 or 12 guys they can play, but it's also two, like they haven't found the right combinations, off the bench, and a lot of that is sort of the Jonathan Kuminga issue that they have. But the Pistons, I think it's like, all these guys played really well when our other guys were hurt. They all deserve to play, right? But yeah, I do think you need to find like, okay, who's our best 5 when Cade's off the floor, right? Who's our best 5 when Duren's off the floor? But it may take time to figure that out. So, and this is the time of the season when you have that time. I will be curious. I mean, you guys tell me. I can't, necessarily. I do remember looking at it like a few games, like a week ago or a week and a half ago, where it's like, yeah, they're just playing 11, 12 guys. I don't know if they've thinned out at all, like in any of their sort of closer games recently. But I'll be curious to see. If not, like, okay, when they play at Boston on Monday or whatever it is, does anybody get taken out of the rotation, like in a sort of pretty big game as far as the Eastern Conference is concerned, and a big game for them, I would think, since they lost to the Celtics recently. They want to get that win back.
Heartbreaking fashion, no less. Missing.
Yeah. So right. So like, okay, we really want to win this game. What does the rotation look like? So I'm just curious. I'm not necessarily like thinking, one way is the right way or not. It's just, I'm just more curious about, okay, what are they going to do when it is, when they're playing a close game against a good team, or an important game against a good team.
Mickey, what is your ideal 10-man rotation from this team?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on foul trouble, but there's sort of like the odd man out, John, I think, like within Piston circles has been Javonte Green. Like he's kind of the guy, and it's like, he's been really great for us. The stats don't look like, amazing, but just like the eye test and the defense and sort of catch and shoot from deep has been really solid. But I'm more interested in him getting a little run than, like, I would almost rather bench Karras, who's also been quite good for us, especially in key moments. But it's just, I think it's important for Ivey to get run. And I think even though Karras has the ability to just sort of go get a bucket, I like the way Danis looks running the second unit more. I think he just has that more like floor general gene about him. So personally, I would probably eat into Karras's minutes because of Javante's positional versatility to I feel like he can guard more guys, but I think I'm in the minority there.
I would say though, that it just, thinking about it, like Green is sort of a vet who isn't much of a rhythm player, right? Like he just seems like the kind of guy you can put on ice for a couple of weeks and then say, hey, we need you for 15 minutes today. And he'll just be just as effective as if he had played, 2 nights earlier. Whereas LeVert might be more of a, hey, he needs to continue playing and get his rhythm. And, I watched a lot of him, when he was in Brooklyn and coming back from injury and I remember when he was out for a long time and coming back, it took a long time for him to get sort of his rhythm and his feel for the game back. So I think he's a guy that's just got to stay in there. Maybe you can reduce his minutes a little bit if you feel like he's not being as effective as you need him to be. But he's got to stay in the rotation for sure. And Green just seems like the obvious guy that you can sit for multiple games at a time and then call on him when you need him.
That's wild. I can't believe we've never brought up the plug and play aspect. We talk about it with
It's a great point, and like the rhythm factor to Karras's game. Like he
right.
and like I really started paying close attention to him, like you're talking about during those the Brooklyn Nets bench mob D'Lo days. Like that was a really fun squad, and he's kind of bounced around. And like anyone I've talked to who knows his game has been like, yeah, if you give him run, he's going to be great for you. And if you look at his stats, it would show that. I just feel like sometimes little tunnel vision, little ball gets a little sticky in his hands, especially just with Ivey coming back. But the Javante isn't going to complain. I think you could argue the same thing for Danis, where he's just like, hungry. And if he doesn't play that game, fine. And if you need him to play 15 minutes, even better.
It's essentially what happened with him, with Danis, with Paul Reed as well, when the Pistons had 7 people down for like a good streak earlier in the season. It's like, hey, bring these guys up, give them the run, and they're just right into it, right, ready to go, which is pretty cool, which also makes trade talk not the worst, because it's like, oh God, what are we going to do if we like trade several players? Well, you have guys who can just jump in and do something if they have to fill that role. The Pistons have been a hot name as far as like trade talk has gone. John, I don't want to like twist your arm if you don't want to do like any speculation in this regard, but do you feel it would be in the Pistons' best interest to make some sort of swing move while the East is open, while they're playing at the top of the East, and while they have like some areas you're like, yeah, you could probably work on that while maintaining their identity?
For sure. Like you never know like how open your window or how long your window is going to be open. I mean, you can go back in history and just see teams that you thought were going to be in the finals every year and just never made it back. Like the Thunder with Durant and Westbrook, the Magic with Dwight Howard. There's lots of teams like that. Right, where they made the finals when their stars were young, and you were like, sky's the limit with this team. They're going to be back in the finals, 3 of the next 6 years or something like that, and it never came. It never happened. So I don't think
squad that fell apart.
Yeah, it's just
yeah. So like, I don't think you should hesitate to spark. But like, obviously, Cade is untouchable. Asar Thompson is untouchable. I think Jalen Duren is untouchable, right? But beyond that, let's what is out there, and how can we complement those guys? And there's certainly probably players that are available, that will or could be available, that could complement them. And then it's just a matter of what's the cost. How much are you mortgaging your future in regard to picks and stuff like that? But yeah, why not keep your options open for sure?
When you were mentioning untouchable guys in Detroit, there is one center that you didn't mention, but I think a lot of people, even on this show, and we huge fans of Jalen Duren. We love Jalen Duren. It would take a lot to move him, like a lot, from my perspective at least. But the center we deem untouchable is Isaiah Stewart, because like so much culture wise, so much defense wise. Plus, he's a stretch big, which is pretty cool for the Pistons to have. He's shown like insane improvement literally every year that since like being on this team, and that contract is insane. It's like $15 million flat for the next 2 or 3 years or something like that. So like not a bad guy to keep around in the whole. What as like a national coverage guy is your perception of Isaiah Stewart? Because it seems like a lot of the national perspective is this guy's dangerous. Yeah, right. Like, dog whistle words, essentially, as opposed to like, this guy's like a baller.
I think he's a great, excellent player, and especially defensively. And you're right, like he is, and they are sort of, the Pistons are right to sort of call him the best or one of the best rim protectors in the league. It is like whenever you watch, there's always a play or two where you're like, oh, how did he prevent that layup or dunk from happening? Where it's like, yeah, he wasn't really in position to defend that shot at the rim, but he still gets there. That's a good question. Like if you had to choose, right? Like if one team was saying, hey, give us Duren or Stewart, like, I don't know what the answer to that question is.
You
guys would know better than you guys. If you watch them every day, I don't watch every Pistons game. If you watch them every day, you would know better than me. And your point about the contract is important. I don't think, he definitely had that sort of wild streak about him that one, time or a couple times. It seems like the Pistons as a whole are a little toned down, a little calmer this year. Even who's you brought him? Who's the bench guy that I'm?
Ron Holland squaring up.
Ron Holland. Ron Holland had there was some game I was watching a couple weeks ago where there was a potential there for Ron Holland to get in the mix with somebody, and he sort of just walked away or something like that. And I was like, oh, it's different. But for Stewart's value on the floor is great. I still obviously I don't think your ideal lineup is him and Duren on the floor together. Although it seems to be working this year after not being used at all last year, and then being a bad combination, especially offensively the year before, in the Monty Williams year.
We don't speak of such things.
You know what? I remember looking at the numbers, and it was a good combination defensively, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just one of those things where the offense was ugly on both ends of the floor when those two guys played together. And then it was amazing that they played they went from playing a few hundred minutes together one year to playing 8 last year.
Yeah.
And then now it's back up. It's kind of interesting
with better numbers. Like the offense and defense is nuts when those two guys. And I think part of that is because Stu's been encouraged to stretch, and because Duren's so good in the short roll, and also the other players around them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I'd be curious to see how that combination continues to work over the next month. Are the numbers still good? And then it's a matter of who's available. I guess if hey, this is not something I'm saying, or if you're trading for Giannis, right? He's better complemented probably by Stewart than Duren, at least offensively. Giannis, he's going to take all your shots in the paint and spray. But if you're trading for Lauri Markkanen, maybe he's better complemented by Duren, right?
Totally.
So at least offensively, defensively, I don't know. So yeah, I think it all depends on the situation.
Yeah, it's tough. And as we're seeing in the chat, they both mean so much to the team. For all the reasons Harry mentioned, Stu is so important. Bickerstaff recently called him the torchbearer of the team's culture. And I don't think anybody would argue with that. And Cade has called Duren his favorite big in the league. And it's hard to argue with your top guy saying that, like, running the break with JD is the easiest thing. It makes his job so easy. Speaking of
also,
which,
I just want to say, also every broadcaster is called JD the most disgusting, lustful terms.
They drool over him whenever he's at the line, just his body. It's like a running gag with us, just making fun of the way that they salivate. But it's all about fit with Cade. Like, that's what this team is all about.
Oh, it seems to have lost your video here for a sec. Oh,
there
and
he
he's
is.
back.
He's back. So
back.
I just as a person who looks at the NBA globally, tell us your thoughts on Cade this season, his growth, and just sort of not just like fishing for you to compliment our top guy, but just areas for improvement, like what you don't like. Where do you see it going?
I think the turnovers are always going to be something, and then the pull-up jump shooting is always going to be, like how much do you punish defenses for, one, going under, or two, playing in drop coverage, and then like the turnovers, like it's always sort of an issue for him. I think but we, like you mentioned, like the turnovers have been a little bit more of an issue the last few games. I know they were down the stretch of one of their recent losses. I think was it at Milwaukee, where he had maybe a bad turn late in the game too. So, I mean, those are the things I watch, but in general, he's obviously a fantastic player. He's just a terrific driver, great finisher when he drives. He's not like at the level passing, like pick and roll passing, as like a Harden or a Trae necessarily need to be.
Absolutely. I think we
lost
him a little
dealing with
bit.
some service
A little bit of technical
here.
stuff.
Oh, we lost him for a sec, but we'll be back. Let me mark that
back in just a moment.
The 45-second mark.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, shout out
Here
to
he
Doc
is.
one more time. Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Internet looks a little bit better now. Let me copy this link. Try to get him in here again.
I think he's in.
Which is not on the
yeah, not on the screen.
Yeah. Properties. Delete.
There we are.
There he is.
Hey,
there he is.
Welcome back.
Back
bro.
in the cut.
Where did I get cut off?
Right when we started talking about Cade, it was like
I think the pick and roll passing and comparing him to like the Hardens of the world, and that's sort of
all right. So you.
The internet, man, it's just in and out here.
Lost you again a little bit, but
let's see. Yeah, it just says it's like a low signal on that.
Low signal. All right, well, we'll take what we can get.
Just put it on there. 45.
Can you hear me? Okay, John.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think we should be. I think we should be all right.
All right, sweet. So like, think we're all pretty sure who's going to come out of the West. Like, where things look now, like who would you pick to come out of the East if pressed at the moment? And like, we'll take this with all the grains of salt. There's a lot of season left, but who have you liked, and just what do you think in terms of Eastern Conference Finals?
That's a good question. I guess the Knicks should be the favorite at this point. I was Cleveland all the way at the start of the season, just because they were just a much better team than the Knicks were last year.
Yeah.
And basically lost to the same season and had injuries when they lost to the Pacers. But yeah, I guess it's the Knicks are the favorite. The Pistons are obviously first place. Haven't played the Knicks yet. So that's obviously something to watch going forward. Obviously Pistons haven't won a playoff series yet, so that's always going to keep people from predicting. That people in general are not going to predict that you're going to win 3 series when you haven't won one in a previous year. That's just the way it is. So right now, I'm sure everybody looks at it, says it's got to be the Knicks because, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and They're just as good as they were last year. This year, maybe a little bit better. So yeah, I mean, it's still very early, and I still am waiting for Cleveland to, one, get healthy, and two, sort of find themselves, because I still think when it comes down to it, like, they should be in the top 3 or 4 for sure.
Their talent is disgusting. I actually thought they got better this year and like really liked the signings they made. I'm a little bit surprised that things aren't going better their way, especially after they beat the crap out of the Pistons earlier in the season. They're only lost by more than 5 points or more than 4 points all year was to Cleveland. The other 2 are 4 points and 3 points that we saw. And Richard DM for it in the chat says Orlando is looking good right now with that psycho Bane. And he's talking probably both about psycho as far as like offensive ability and psycho as far as throwing the ball at people. They're like laying down.
I used to have a running thing on social media where it was like, who first team all irritant, right? Like
Dylan Brooks,
Isaiah Stewart, and like
Yep.
Ron Holland would certainly have been first team all irritant probably last year. Dylan Brooks for sure.
Mhm.
You know, Patrick Beverly. I had never thought of Desmond Bane, but like what was in that in their game the other night when I was watching, I was like, yeah, Desmond Bane is making a good run for first team all irritant this year. He just seems to be pissed off at everybody.
I sneaky like this lineup, by the way. I actually, I'm not saying they're contenders, but I'm like, I'd watch.
Well, Bane and Brooks played together, right? Like
Bane
and
Brooks, Grizzlies. Yep.
You know, so yeah, it's interesting. And shoot, like, I think we're seeing the value of Dylan Brooks like this year, right? Like when he goes from Houston to Phoenix, and all of a sudden Phoenix is just a much tougher, much better defensive team. And he's been like the one change, right? Jalen Green hasn't played, you know, and they got rid of, you know, their stars from the past, but like there's value in that sort of toughness and bringing sort of an edge to you every night. Like that there's value in that in the regular season for sure, right? Like in the playoffs, you would think that all 16 teams are going to have that edge, but in the regular season, maybe that wins you some games.
The Pistons fan base knows that firsthand that wins you a lot of games. Like, there's like a lot of love in the crowd too. Like when Ron Holland does something on the court, the crowd goes crazy, like absolutely loses their mind. It's like a flip switches, even if the Pistons already up by like a ton. So much energy. And what you were saying about Dylan Brooks too, the same thing happened when he left Memphis. Like Memphis got worse. And people are like, oh, it's, you know, Ja's playing worse, and you know, JJJ has been injured, but like also Brooks left, and Houston got better when Brooks is on that team, and now, like you said, the Suns playing better with him on that, and he's a pretty big important piece of that squad.
For sure. I think the other thing I would say with like Ron Holland and probably Stewart is like those are homegrown guys, right? To Pistons fans. I mean, you saw it, like the ultimate example is Golden State with Steph and KD. Like they're always going to love the guys that have been there from the start. Any team's fans are just always going to love the guys that were drafted and are the homegrown players more than the imports, right? Like it's just the way it is. And the great thing with the Pistons right now is they have a lot of those guys, right?
Maybe more than anybody else in the league, right? There could be there's reason to believe that their starting lineup could be all draftees. It could be Cade, Ivey, Asar, Duren, and Stu. Right there, it's it. Or put Ron Holland in there. There's six important players are all drafted. I don't know if any other team in the NBA can say that really.
That's a good question. I'd have to look. Yeah, I'd have to look. But yeah, I mean, even like the Wizards, like who have just a bunch of young guys that were drafted in the last 3 or 4 rounds. A lot of them were acquired via trade after a year or two. So yeah, that's a great. I haven't like looked at that league wide, but it's something I just realized about the Pistons is that they have a bunch of these homegrown guys, and I'm sure that makes it tough for the front office to think about, you know, the trades that we talked about before.
Well, they didn't draft all those guys. So, you had a different regime and stuff. And like maybe honestly the regime that did draft those guys might be interested in getting some of those guys back, considering they're running New Orleans at this moment.
Harry's projecting because one of our biggest, especially on this pod, but amongst the fan base is Trey Murphy. That's a guy that we feel like would fit right in and like doesn't necessarily, as you said, mortgage the future. So that's where that's gonna be. You brought up some other names like Giannis and Lauri Markkanen. Are there any other guys you think would be really good to just sort of like fill out the roster, maybe add some shooting?
In a dream for you specifically, like if you were able to just like put a player on this Pistons team, what would that be?
I mean, I think like because of the 4, like what position would you want to upgrade the most, right? It's probably the 3/4, right? Because maybe a Thompson could play the 4 a little bit if you had some range or some length at the 3. So like Markkanen, we mentioned Siakam. Like obviously the Pacers have no reason to trade him, but like
I mean, they didn't have any reason to trade Miles Turner either. But
yeah, like he would be, he would be ideal, right? Like a 4 that is rangy and mobile, right? Markkanen isn't as mobile, but he's still a multi-level scorer, right? A guy who can shoot, but a guy who's actually really good driving to the basket, attacking closeouts and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, those are the I mean, Tobias Harris like is a solid player. I just feel like he's not aggressive offensively enough for being a starting 4 on the on a championship contender, perhaps.
Yeah. Like he's a 15 point per game guy in a good year. At this point in his career, it'd be great to get another 20 point scorer at this point, and someone who's like kind of lethal from outside would be very nice.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because like they've stood pat for so long that I think everybody's sort of like chomping at the bit, like especially with Ivey and Duren extensions due.
No like horse pun intended.
But like there was like a lot of questioning about like, is it because like we know like Tobias is just important to the locker room. Like the organization has said that a lot. Just like we didn't get rid of Beasley, but he's no longer with the team. And we lost THJ, who was another vet that was with them during the turnaround season. And so like part of us like totally speculating feels like they'd be reluctant to trade one of the only vets who's been really core to the locker room. And just also being like, well, if it's not another 4, is it just another scorer, like a second option behind, like next to Cade? Because as has been a trend for the last season or so, who the second best player is can vary from night to night. Lately, it's been Duren,
yeah.
But it's been a little fluid.
And like you said at the beginning, like earlier in the podcast, like who do you count on when Duren and Cade aren't on the floor? So who can that be? Right now, we don't really know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point. Yeah, like a scorer at the 2, like because they're now as constructed, just needing so much from Cade on, if in a close game, down the stretch of a close game, like there's no other person to put the ball in their hands, right? Like it has to be him.
Yeah,
right. Like who else is there?
The points show he's second in the NBA, I believe, in scoring in the clutch, just behind Shea, shooting 53%. He's having a hell of a season in the clutch, especially after last year when people were like, I don't think he's a closer. We don't think he's got it in him, but he's certainly looking like it right now. I wanted to, as we're coming to a close here, I just want to shift to 2 personal questions. One, you said you joined like roughly 20 years ago. I want to know if it's like still the case, but when you joined, were you a fan of a specific team or was it players? And has it been difficult to suppress your fandom? At least was it at the beginning? I know as you go on further and further, you're more separated from like individual fandom because you're so wrapped in the program. But what did you start out as, and when did that dissipate, if it has at all?
So going further back, I was a Bulls fan. I was 9 years old when Michael Jordan came into the league. So I was a Bulls fan from 1984 to 1998.
You had the leopard print hair. We get it.
Yeah, I mean, just like you're watching like the Michael Jordan highlight tapes were my fuel for going out into the driveway, before I went out in the driveway and practice the up and unders and all that stuff. So but then like my Bulls fandom just basically ended at June 1998, and that was it. I'm from New Jersey, so I was a Nets. Not a few years after that is when the Nets became good.
Keith Van Horn.
And so now we're talking about another rival because those years where the Pistons were coming back too. So the Jason Kidd era Nets were a favorite of mine, and that's basically at the end of that era is when I started writing for NBA.com, 2005. But yeah, like you said, my fandom is long gone. Like I do not care who wins any particular game. I say this too, like I'm a Virginia Tech grad, so my favorite team right now is anything Virginia Tech football, basketball, women's basketball, soccer, softball, whatever it is, lacrosse, like whatever Virginia Tech sport, like I'm watching that because my job is watching sports like totally analytically and dispassionately, right? Like 95% of my sports watching is dispassionate, analytical. And that's not the way sports are meant to be enjoyed. There's meant to be enjoyed as a fan or as a competitor, right? So like, if you know me, you'll know that like right now I'm actually missing the first half of a Virginia Tech basketball game, and I'm going to be watching that because that allows me to watch sports with the way they're meant to be watched. Like I'll go to a game, I'll go to say Knicks Pistons playoff game, and I love what I do. I wouldn't change it for the world, and I love being there, and I'm getting paid to be there. But I'm a little bit jealous of the guy that's sitting, a few seats away, drinking his beer and enjoying the game as a fan, because that's what it's all about, really.
Well, respect to you for remaining pure for the sake of the NBA. What you do is so cool, but like that is like a weird little burden. Like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like like you said, like I don't care. Like the only time I care who's winning any game that I'm covering is if like it's 3-0 in a playoff series, right? Like because let's get this over with and let's move on to the next one. Like 3-1, there's a possibility that we could go 7. That'd be cool. This could be still a competitive series, but 3-0, it's like, all right, let me go home and get a couple of days off before the next series. And I think the only one I did cover, the one was it Heat Celtics that was 3-0 and then went to Game 7 a couple years ago. I did cover some of that series, so that was a possibility. But until we see a comeback from 3-0, I'm going to be rooting for
the sweep and sleep.
The sweep.
I'd
Mercy
totally
kill.
Put it out. It's I spent a couple decade and a half like doing stand-up professionally, and when COVID hit, I quit. And I got to say, like, I got into stand-up because I was such a fan of it. Like, I really enjoyed it. And when I started doing it professionally, I can't watch stand-up at all anymore. It's like it's completely taken the fandom out for me because it's when you treat something like work as opposed to like a fan, it just changes something in your brain. It's all different. You're thinking about it in different ways. You're approaching it from a different way. It's hard to get the same sort of fascination and the amazement out of it that you got before you peeked behind the curtain a little bit.
I still love watching a game. Like if you could put like Wizards Hornets on right now, and I will enjoy watching and enjoy the action. So I guess it's different than what you're talking about. Like I still enjoy it. I just don't care about the result. Like I want to see, how I'm curious to see how Bub Carrington plays. I'm curious to see, if like LaMelo Ball is like ever going to sort of put it all together, so I still, as like I say, it's analytical and it's just passionate, but that means that's just as far as the teams and particular. Like I still love basketball in all forms, and still love what I can. Like I said, put any game in front of me, and I'm going to enjoy watching it. But like as far as who wins or loses, I don't care.
I love the curiosity though, just for like, narratives and like there are these questions that are still interesting, whether or not you have any skin in the game. And along those lines, you have a game to get to a little later. We're keeping you from your Virginia Tech game, but you are a hooper as well. We ask everyone, because I don't play, Harry plays.
Used to. It's over.
Yeah,
it's over.
You
I don't have
off the cobwebs. No, you can't dunk, but you're still mix it up.
I still got the Sabrina ones. I can still rock them, but
Yeah,
no community out here. So, different story. But yeah, as you were, Mickey. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just I always love hearing the player comps that people have for themselves. You can be as modest or as cocky as you like. And
it's modest to be zealous.
Let's see. I'm a point guard, and I like to pass. Maybe I'm a little bit risky with my passing. Like I will just throw the ball. Like I will try to thread the needle. Like my absolute favorite thing to do is like have a defender have his back turned and just throw it right by his ear to, my teammate. So I probably like a short Josh Giddey. Like Giddey is a little probably like if you said like what point guard is probably a little bit too careless with the ball, with his passing and stuff, I would probably say Josh Giddey. I think I once got compared. Bill Simmons once compared me to Darren Williams, which I don't necessarily see, but I can shoot. Like I'm not just like a total, pass first point guard. Like if you give me a shot, I'll shoot it. So that's that. I'm not particularly great. I say I'm good for someone who's 50 and 5'8", probably, and I'm good because I'm good for somebody who's 50 years old because there's not a lot of us still playing.
if you're a point guard who likes to pass the ball in pickup basketball, people have to love playing with you, I imagine.
I would think so, unless I start throwing the ball out of bounds a little bit too much, and that can happen from time to time. And we have this one guy in our pickup run who's much younger than most of us, much more athletic than all of us, and pretty big. I'm going to end up throwing the ball to him like 5 or 6 times a night just because he's just everywhere. He's just one of these, like guys that's just going to be all over the place.
Give him the Jalen Duren treatment. Just throw it up. Let him do his thing with
spam that pick and roll. Yeah, it works until it doesn't.
It's never.
No, I mean, first of all, I just love hearing about this, and then I also just feel like I have so much respect for. I have so much respect for point guards, and I feel like with like the whole CP3 drama, like it's a little bit of a lost art. Like there's not a lot of just like great floor. Like everyone's a combo guard now, which there's nothing wrong with. Like Josh Giddey's like a walking triple double on any given night, but I have so much respect for like true like vision. Like I think it's such an underrated aspect of the game.
That's why it was easy to love those Nets teams when Jason Kidd came. Like he was just the greatest, the best. Him and Nash were the best passers in the league by far. I was at that triple overtime Nets Suns game, and that was like obviously one of the best games I've ever been at because Kidd and Nash were just doing their thing for it was a double overtime. I don't know. It was like 58 minutes or something like that, and I was covering the game, but it was just so awesome to be at. So yeah, I love Kidd, I love Nash, love CP3. Like even at the end, he's still a pick and roll savant. Like he always just makes the right pass, the right play out of the pick and roll. I do like Trae Young, like as a passer too. Like he makes some great sort of wraparound passes and stuff like that you're not seeing from many other people around the league.
Little nutmeg action.
Yeah.
So entertaining.
We're pretty big Trae Young fans for Detroit Pistons team. But whatever. It's cool to see point guards do a thing. Also, there was a little Jason Williams disrespect in the passing world, but I get it. I totally get it. I'm a sucker for the Flash. I grew up in the and one time period of basketball, so Jason Williams was kind of my passing guy.
He's an elbow pass guy.
I am an elbow pass guy. When that happened, I lost my mind and was too small to be able to like get the ball around my body to be pulling it off. But man, super cool. And yeah, those Nets teams were sick. Richard Jefferson, Vince Carter, that whole like era.
I mean, it was such a
Kenny
he was
Martin.
complemented perfectly, right? Like
Yeah.
Kerry Kittles. Like
Kerry
I don't think
Kittles.
there was
Oh, what a
anybody.
baller. Yeah.
He was like the fastest in the league at just getting up and down the like if on change of possession, like Kerry Kittles was beating everybody down the floor. So he was a great compliment to Kid as well as you know that the Kid was like obviously their best player, but they complimented him so well with that group.
I think that's like kind of not to transition into this like closing Pistons thing, but I think that's one thing that the Pistons are doing that's like kind of wise is they're really trying to figure out how to best complement their best player in Cade Cunningham. It's been a long time coming. Wasn't that in 2023, 2024? Started to see the beginnings of that last year, and as this is developing, we're getting a clearer picture of it all. And I hope it all works out, and I hope they can continue to rise up the power rankings of NBA.com. And I hope not too many Pistons fans give you shit for it, because the teams are all close. There's so many good teams in the end. I mean, it's Oklahoma City and then like kind of everybody else at this point, but there's like 6 or 7 teams that are really making some noise. And John, thank you so much for joining the Order. Such a special treat to have you on the show, man. Is there anything you want us to plug for you? You want to plug anything yourself out here?
No, man, just check me on Blue Sky, and I'll post some stats over there every once in a while, and then I'll always post a link to Power Rankings. They come out every Monday. I don't know, 10 or 11. I'm napping when they actually get posted, and then I wake up and I'll post the link on my Blue Sky account in the afternoon at some point. But you can find them on NBA.com every Monday, and no later than noon.
Great. Doc Hammertime says really fun pod. Always look forward to your rankings, John. So you got a fan in the chat as well as in this podcast. Mickey, you got anything you want to close on, bud?
No, it was just so great hearing from you. And yeah, it's just important to remember for fans who want to like overreact or be doomers. Like there's a lot more that goes into the power rankings than just, but we're second best. Come on.
Don't be offended if I ranked you too low. Be offended if I didn't write anything interesting about you.
It's true.
I think that's a great way to put it. You know, like if he doesn't have any thoughts, that's a problem.
The city editions looked cool. Oh, damn. If you're
Good
saying
popcorn
that,
at the arena.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everybody in the chat for joining us and for listening. And Pistons won 2 games since our last post. Maybe they'll win a couple more by our next one. I believe we're going to be back here next Thursday with a guest from The Ringer. Fortunate to be joined by John today from NBA.com. But we're going to close the show the same way we do every time, which is reading the acronym OOBH aloud, because that's how a horse would talk anyway. So I've been Harry.
And I'm Mickey.
I don't know if he's still here or not.
Are we out?
We're done recording. Oops, I should
Still live.